let's say we're just going to do it only with the unit itself. Alright, so that means we have just 2 drives. In this case, drive 10, oops, and I think the other one is 11, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 11. I've got a 1571 on 11. We're going to pick DS2 this time, and you can easily run this off of a single 1581. And since we're running Jiffy DOS on both, you know, bonus. But you definitely want to be running Jiffy DOS. And if you don't have it already, you need to go get yourself a copy of the ROM. They are still licensed and sold. You can get, if you're here in the States, I'd advise going to Retro Innovations. Because, I mean, what, I think it's like $9. Why not? Get you one for each drive that you need. So here, we'll just go to where I have my ROMs. And once you download it, you find the actual one, the actual binary file for you. So in this case, 1581. Just press enter, and then you can set it as whatever ROM you want. So in this case, we want it set it as our 1581 ROM, and that takes the place where it covers for both drives. All right, and then same with 1571, and then the 1541. I always like to run the 1541-II. There we go. Let's go ahead and set it up as a brand new user. Alright. So I'm going to do you a solid. We're just going to start this over from by God scratch. Let's just go to configuration, reset to defaults. Are you sure? So now my Ultimate is going to be set up pretty much just like yours. And by default, it comes off of the analog video port instead of the HDMI port, which is fine because that's what we're doing. But if you know, alright. So basically how we got there is we just went to data streams, and then we set our IP addresses. You couldn't really see it on the top half of my camera there because at the time you couldn't see what the hell I was doing, but that's what we did. Alright, so now let's go to addressing. So on the second one we do unmapped and yada yada yada. We'll just talk over that anyway. No cartridges. Disable. Alright, so now we're going to do our kernel. We're going to use basic Jiffy DOS C64. We're not going to use a RAM unit. You can, but that's a little bit more advanced. We'll get into that later. And then of course, knowing what drive your stick is in is very critical. So, but since we're not preloading any images, that does not matter. It will come into play later. Alright, command interface. That needs to be turned on for being able to control it remotely, like I am with the laptop. Alt-DOS, allow set date. I honestly don't know what that does. It really doesn't affect the operation of the BBS, so I just make sure that I match these two commands, the command interface and the Alt-DOS. Just in case, because there could be stuff going on under there that I have no idea about. Alright, U64 specific. Here we go. System mode. Well, for me, I'm in TSC because I'm in the States, and I prefer it that way. We don't need to adjust any of these. The analog video mode is just that. Digital video mode. It doesn't really matter because I'm not using either, so you can just leave that as auto. If you're using an HDMI cable, you'll want to set that to HDMI, and then later you'll want to, under user interface, change it to overlay on your screen. That's a really cool looking setup. But this is a much older monitor, and I didn't want to run it that way. Plus, I like it when it's nice and square and boxy, and you can't really do that in the HDMI mode. So it's all about aesthetics for me. I like it looking as old school as possible. Burst mode patch. Well, since we don't have any drives or externals and whatnot, we don't really need that. We're going to leave that off. Plus, we don't want to accidentally step on any of our modem addressing. We do not have a parallel cable, and HDMI scan line. Since we're not using HDMI, it doesn't really matter, but that gives it that kind of old school flavor whenever you're looking at it on HDMI screen. Alright, and then SID player auto config. I don't want anything auto configuring, not on a BBS. And it's sad, we're actually cutting off 80% of the functionality of this board by running a BBS. But, you know, ultimately, what is a BBS? Setting up your computer for everybody else but you. Turbo control. We can discuss that later. For DS2, I'm going to leave it off for now. I did write a patch for DS2 that allows you to make use of the turbo, but let's keep it simple. That'll be for another video. And obviously, because it's a Commodore 64, it is locked down to 1 megahertz. So there we go. So now, as you see, our screen has jumped back into a more letterbox view, so that if, here, let's go ahead and save what we got and go check it out, and then hold in the button for 2 seconds and it reboots. So now we don't have our Jiffy DOS yet because we've not told it to reboot the operating system, which in this case operating system would be the freaking bin file that we loaded earlier for the kernel. So let's go to 64 machine, reboot C64. This will give it a fresh follow my commands. Alright, so now you can see we're in Jiffy DOS and we have no drives connected. So now we've pissed off our little flashy error light there. I don't know if you can see that. So, yay, here we go. Back into the menu. Let us continue setting up our features here. Okay, so U64, we already discussed that. Whoopsies. I didn't make any changes. Get off my face. Clock settings. There's really nothing you need to set here unless, you know, you have issues holding the correct time. I've not ever had to set anything in there.